Which team will win the NFC South? Who will disappoint? Who will surprise? What's going on, BLV? It's Mitch here to give you my in-depth preview of the NFC South, providing my record prediction for the Saints, the Falcons, the Panthers, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, giving you an in-depth look at their rosters, their strengths, weaknesses, and my overall thought of how their season will go in 2023. If that sounds good, don't forget to spike the like button and subscribe for the rest of my NFL division previews and team breakdowns. Also, let me know in the comment section below which team you believe will win the crazy, unpredictable NFC South. Because, let's be honest, guys, this division is unpredictable. This division is unknown. This division could go a number of different ways. Last year, the Tampa Bay Bucs, in Tom Brady's final season in the NFL, won the division as a losing team, a losing record. They didn't even have to try in the last game, and they had a losing record. That's insane, right? They could have been 9-8 if maybe they would have beat the Falcons in the last game, but they didn't even need to. They had a losing record, and they still won the division. So I could see that happening again in 2023. It's very possible. That being said, it does look like the schedules for this division are very weak, very cupcake. But how much of that is inflated by the fact that they play their own division? Right? You play 6 games within the NFC South. And I really believe that the team that does the best within this division might very well just win the division. So let's break down each team. The expectations for the division is that it's going to be one of the worst in football. But I can see 3 teams with the possibility of winning it. I think one team is looking to rebuild this year. And I think one team is desperate to win the division. One team is on the rise, but maybe they don't really care so much this year. It's more about the future. And another team has made a very quiet run this offseason to put themselves in position to win the division. So let's begin with the new and improved Carolina Panthers. The Carolina Panthers traded up, you might have heard, to the first pick in the NFL draft to draft Bryce Young, their savior, their franchise quarterback, their next Superman. The Carolina Panthers' expectations for this year, I would say, is that they want to be better than last year, at least in terms of their watchability. They want to be more likable. I would say that within the fan base, they don't necessarily expect to make the playoffs, although they believe it's a possibility. They also just want to see, point blank period, that Bryce Young is the best quarterback that they've had since Cam Newton. That's all they want to see. Because it's been a tough road since Cam Newton. You've had the Teddy Bridgewaters. You've had the Sam Darnolds. You've had the Baker Mayfields, which we're going to have to talk about him in this video too. You've had a lot of different guys, and you've pretty much whiffed and missed on all of them. Can Bryce finally bring stability to this position? Frank Reich is a new coach. You went the college route with the last one. Didn't exactly work out for you. So you want to also see that Frank Reich knows what he's doing and that he is your guy, that he is going to build a culture that is going to stand and really be able to build a winner over a sustained period of time. And the thing about Frank Reich is, I was a fan of Frank Reich in Indianapolis, but he was never able to get that quarterback for a long period of time. He had Andrew Luck for just a second, He had Phillip Rivers for just a second, and he never really was able to piece it all together. He certainly didn't have a young franchise quarterback. The Carolina Panthers, I believe, are a team that I could be sitting here at the end of the year and say, man, I should have stuck with my guns. I should have said, because I've been saying all offseason, Carolina's got maybe the best overall coaching staff in this division. They have a good young roster. They're the team that I would say they don't really have any holes on their roster, but they don't really have any pure strengths. Not in the way that New Orleans does, not in the way that Atlanta does, and not even the way that Tampa does. Like, Carolina doesn't have one area, I would say, that you can point to and say, that is their identity. And I guess that's partly due to the fact that they have a new coaching staff, a new quarterback. It's difficult to place it. But that could also be the reason why they don't win this division. All offseason, I've been saying, that's the team for me. That's the team for me. And just recently, I've kind of fallen out of love. So I'm going to explain both sides. Why I see it with Carolina, why I also don't see it with Carolina. Let's begin with the rankings when it comes to Carolina's roster and team. So first, the quarterback position. Obviously, Bryce Young is a rookie quarterback. It's tough to rank him very high. I've never seen him play an NFL game, at least a meaningful NFL game. So that's all I really have to say. That being said, I was a CJ Stroud guy, and I think a lot of you know that. I was a CJ Stroud guy over Bryce Young. I would have picked CJ Stroud over Bryce Young if I had the first pick in the 2023 NFL Draft, and I am not going to back down from that until I see different. That being said, I also liked Bryce Young enough to accept the pick by Carolina. Smart kid, really good feet, really good inside that pocket, manipulating the pocket, making people miss, extending plays. Pretty accurate guy. I feel like has a great presence and vision for the game. And I think the IQ level is what you really need to hone in on in year one. Because I don't think he's like super gifted as an athlete, but he's sort of unique because he's such a small guy. But his elusiveness could be the special trait athletically that maybe he brings to the table here. I think Bryce should be able to get to a top 15 quarterback within the next couple of years. I do believe that. Whether or not he will ever be special, I think is a different question, and I don't think so, but I could certainly see him being a good quarterback for a number of years. The coaching. Like I said, I'm a Frank Reich fan. I think there's a lot of people that are kind of mixed with him, and I certainly see that. But I don't know. He never really got a fair shake in Indianapolis, in my opinion, and I thought he did a lot of good in Indianapolis. I also really do like his offenses, typically. I think he brings a lot of balance to the table. I like how he sees the game from the quarterback perspective, and I think that's key with Bryce Young. I also think he's had a number of good running games over the past couple of years in Indianapolis. And usually he fielded a team that was pretty competitive. You have to say that much. The offensive line, at number 8 is where I ranked them early this offseason. That is not looking like the case. That might have been my worst ranking here on this entire list. They look terrible in the preseason. And I'm not going to lie, that's really what scared me off picking Carolina to win this division. But that being said, if Austin Corbett comes back and he's healthy and he can form this top 5, the starting 5, and Ekwonu can get his head out of his rear end and actually improve the way I thought he might in year 2, then I feel like this line can still piece together a top unit. Because last year, if you guys remember, Carolina's offensive line was the reason they were good at the end of the year. Like, the reason Carolina was winning games at the end of the year. Defense was playing well as always, but the running game, Foreman, the identity of toughness, grit. Maybe that's a coaching thing. Maybe we overlooked what Woods brought there. And Kyle Shanahan scooped that up in San Francisco, of course. But I don't know. Was it an offensive line kind of just clicking at the right time? Weird. Just weird. But it's only the preseason. No need to panic. Offense rank, I have a 26. I feel like the receiving core concerns me. I don't think you have one special talent at tight end, running back, or wide receiver. Not one special, extraordinary talent. I kind of know what that's like being a Patriots fan, although I would say that I think even New England has better skill positions than Carolina, which is kind of depressing if you're a Panthers fan. So I have you at 26 because you have a rookie quarterback, you have an offensive line that's struggling, you have a receiving core with no one special. Roster rank at number 22 is actually lower than I thought I would rank them. I think the stronger unit is the defense in terms of the roster ranking. The offense, not so much. A lot of lower end type of players. Secondary at number 21, I think their upside is a lot greater than that because honestly, the defense statistically last year did not play to the level that you would have thought. They had some really good games last year, as they typically have over the last couple of years, but they didn't really put together a consistent season. So hopefully with J.C. Horn back in the fold, with Von Bell there at safety, they can hold it down and really make this secondary a top half unit. The potential is there. Defensive line, I have it 23rd, although I did rank that before Justin Houston signed. They would definitely rank a little bit higher because my biggest concern about the unit was the other edge position opposite Brian Burns. I felt it was very lacking, let's say. Defense rank, number 22. Again, I just felt like the defense underwhelmed last year. On paper, it's better than 22. I have to give them it's better than 22, especially after the addition of Justin Houston. I like the linebacker combination. I like the defensive line now. I feel like the secondary has promise. But let's get into the roster, starting with the offense. So, again, going back to this offensive line, Austin Corbett, I did slot in as one of the starters. I'm not sure what his timetable is for returning to the Carolina Panthers this season. The depth on Carolina's offensive line is certainly concerning, and I think that's the biggest takeaway that you can have from the preseason. The depth was concerning. There's no doubt about it. Bryce Young at QB, Sanders and Hubbard at running back. I wouldn't be surprised if Hubbard actually ended up eating into Sanders' carries and work at some point during this year. They're similar type of players in terms of explosive runners. I feel like they're more speed and vision than they are power, grit, and toughness type runners. They're not really big guys. So I feel like they do complement each other and fit this zone running scheme, I feel, pretty well overall. The one concern I have about the running back position, I know they want to make Miles Sanders a pass catcher, but I don't really think he is. Just going to be honest. Hayden Hurst at tight end was a decent pickup. I felt like he played well. The contract's a different story, but he's a pretty good player. And I liked what I saw from him in Cincinnati last year. Adam Thielen looks to be Adam Thielen this offseason. He looks to not be totally dust, which is a good thing. He actually played pretty well in one of the preseason games. DJ Chark, he's going to be a roller coaster for you guys. You're going to love him in some games. He's going to show up. He's going to make plays. Other games, he's going to disappear. But he is one of those guys that can hit a big play. He is good in contested catch situations. He does have great speed, great size, all that stuff. Mingo is similar. He's a rookie, so obviously you expect some tough games and some disappearing acts. But I would also expect from Mingo some big-time plays. He's super athletic, and we'll see if any of those guys can establish themselves as the pure number one. Laviska Shenault's also on this depth chart. He's somebody that I think they'll mix in as, like the do-it-all type of receiver. Terrace Marshall, I believe, is still on the team as well, although I haven't heard much about him this offseason. Defensively, I think what they did in Carolina this offseason is, in terms of their starting lineup, they really limited the negative aspects of the defense. The downright bad players that are starting on the defense, right? They brought in Shai Tuttle to shore up, let's say, that defensive line. I think the saying is actually shore up. Somebody correct me. I don't know. I'm still wondering about this. I think it's actually shore up, but I always say sure up. Anyways, they're going to be sure that Tuttle is not bad, okay? Then you've got Derek Brown, who's an absolute animal in the inside. Brian Burns is the same on the edge. And Justin Houston, I just think, lifts the floor of this defensive line a lot. He was actually, I thought, the best pass rusher on Baltimore last year by a mile. He was an animal last season. He is getting super old, like older than dirt, but the guy can still play, and I expect him to rotate on the defensive line due to his age. I don't think they want to have him play every snap. Chin is going to be the nickel guy, although he could play box safety as well, maybe even a little linebacker if they need him to. He is that versatile piece. Dante Jackson, they're still trying to make work as corner number 2. He is kind of the same cornerback version of DJ Chark. JC Horn is a stud, but he just needs to be healthy. Bell, Woods, good tandem at safety. I think Woods is like a replaceable starter type of guy, but he's not bad. And then Von Bell, I loved that pickup. I'm a big fan of Von Bell's game. I just think he's one of those guys that you may not notice a lot. Like, he doesn't make a lot of mistakes. He's always in the right position. He does everything well. He's a good tackler. He's good in the box against the run. He's good in coverage. He's not an outstanding athlete. Like, this guy's not Jesse Bates from Cincinnati. He was the other guy where it's like, okay, Jesse Bates is the flashy playmaking safety. Bell is like the do my job type guy. Then we got Thompson and Luvu. Luvu had a breakout season last year, expecting big things from him this year as a blitzer and as a hybrid linebacker for this team. And then Shaq Thompson, I think, has been underrated for years as a very good middle linebacker. So Carolina's defense looking good on paper. I think it should be much improved. Also, the scheme change with Evero should be interesting. I think he did a great job with the Denver Broncos last year. And I do like a lot of the additions to the coaching staff in Carolina. I think Jim Caldwell's on the staff. Guys like that just have experience in the NFL as head coaches. Like, I think there's a lot of these guys behind the scenes that are going to be important in building this new regime in Carolina for Frank Reich and for Bryce Young. This team's tough, man. Again, looking at that roster, I feel like the defense could keep them in a lot of games. I'm just not sure the offense has enough unless Bryce Young is just a superstar from day one, which I'm not sure he's going to be able to, because I don't know if the offensive line's going to really keep him protected and stay consistent. I don't know if their running game is going to be that fantastic. And the receivers, I think, are going to struggle to separate. So I think Bryce Young is going to have a tough time in moments, but I think he's going to show some flashes. And I think we're going to recognize and realize by the end of the year that maybe he just needs some upgrades around him to really make this thing work. So I think Carolina is still a few pieces away from being a playoff team and from being the winner of the NFC South. But I do think they're competitive, and I do think that their coaching, Bryce being one of the better quarterbacks in this division, and the defense overall, and a lot of young, talented guys, I think it's going to make this team fun to watch and interesting week to week in their matchups, because I feel like they'll compete in just about every game, but they may not win all of those games. So looking at it, I think Carolina is going to go 7-10. I initially had them at 8-9, 9-8. I've since switched my mind and changed my mind because of the preseason performance and the lack of good vibes surrounding this team throughout the offseason, throughout this preseason period in August here. And just me, I've decreased my opinion on their offense and the offensive line. And I just feel like, again, I've maybe swayed a little bit in terms of I just don't think they're there yet. I think they need one more year to get there, and I think this is a building year. So 7-10 is my record prediction. 10-7 is my ceiling. If everything goes right, their offensive line gets it together, one of their receivers breaks out and becomes a number one, their running game gets going, their defense plays at a top 12 level, this could be the division winner. This could be the best team in the division, and I would not really be surprised. The floor would be 5-12. They're better than last year in terms of, talent, but it just doesn't come together. Frank Reich may be struggling to find the identity of this team. As I stated at the beginning, this team doesn't really have an identity based on just players alone. Like, what is it? Are they a run-heavy team, a pass-heavy team? Are they a team that plays with a physical style? Are they a team that's finesse? What are they? We don't really know. 5-12, obviously injuries can come with that. A lot of different things, right? Maybe their defense just continues to not perform at the level that they should, despite the coaching change. And if I were to bet their win total, I would lean towards the under here, under the 7.5. Again, my overall picture and vision of Carolina is a team that is competitive, a team that's building, a team that we're trying to find out who are their core pieces for the future and who's going to be around Bryce Young. And we're also trying to determine, is Bryce Young the guy? Is he that dude? Do they need to help him next year? Or do we have to start worrying about, is this not the guy? So that's my opinion on the Carolina Panthers. Let's move to the next team in the NFC South. Let me know your prediction for Carolina in the comment section below. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are next up. The Tampa Bay Bucs have been one of my favorite teams in the NFL over the past 3 years. Of course, I have been a Bucs fan due to one Tom Brady, and I still love a lot of the Bucs players, man. I still have so much admiration for these guys. I really think a lot of these guys are great football players, and I've really enjoyed being a Bucs fan because it's a lot different from being a Patriots fan. And having that mix has been honestly a blessing because Bucs fans are awesome. I really like Bucs fans. And Bucs fans are they go with the flow, man. They just love it. Like anything that works for them, they're cool. They're laid back and they've really enjoyed that success. So it's great to see Bucs fans who didn't experience success for a long time experience Tom Brady and that success. Very, very cool stuff. And honestly, even though I'm a Patriots fan who's still sour that Tom Brady left us, I feel like without that, that experience of seeing the GOAT go to a different team and have a new perspective on his greatness in terms of, different fans seeing it up close and personal, different fans seeing a different side of his personality, all that stuff. I think that's just increased his legend, which is also great because he's my favorite player of all time. And I love seeing other people embrace Tom Brady. So the Bucs, they're in the new era. They're in a new era, moving past Tom Brady, trying to figure out what this next era is going to be. They've brought in a bridge quarterback, in my opinion, Baker Mayfield, a guy that was a first overall pick, a guy that showcased talent in the NFL, showcased talent at the college level, showcased that he could make the playoffs and lead a team to the playoffs, has a good arm, has some things intangible. What am I trying to say? I can't say the word right now. He is a good leader at times. Let's just say that, okay? Okay, Bucs fans, he has a good charisma to him. He has this bravado to him that makes you want to believe in him. Baker Mayfield, okay? But what are the expectations for Tampa Bay? Tampa Bay is a football team. I think their fans are like totally cool with sucking this year. Like from every angle that I've heard, they're like fine. They almost expect it. They don't really necessarily want to get back to pre-Brady era where they were like irrelevant. So they still want to be somewhat relevant, which I guess Baker Mayfield makes you somewhat relevant because he's Baker the commercial maker, at least for a season. And they still have a lot of players on their roster that they love, right? Levante David, Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, Antoine Winfield, Shaq Barrett. They've got a lot of legends for Tampa Bay on the roster still. So it should make those guys exciting to watch at times. And it's trying to figure out how we get to the next era of winning in Tampa Bay. So this year is fully understood to be a transition year. A year where the Bucs winning would be nice, but it's probably not going to happen. Let's just accept whatever happens and try to figure it out. That's kind of the expectations for Tampa. And I feel like across the board, people are very down on the Bucs. I made a video earlier in the offseason explaining why I felt like they had a really good offseason for what they were given, right? This was a team in a terrible situation from a financial standpoint, and they figured it out. They actually added some nice veteran pieces to the roster. They, I think, had a nice draft, and I think they're in good hands from a front office standpoint. So let's take a look at their rankings across the board on offense, defense, and all the rest. So first, the quarterback at number 29, Baker Mayfield. I put him at 29 because at least he's started some games and done some good things, and at his best, Baker has played well. I put a couple quarterbacks that are less proven behind him at number 30 through 32. But Baker, I'm not super confident in. I'm going to be honest. I don't think he's going to have a good year. I do think he's more of a backup than a starter at this point. I'm just not sure his ego will allow that. And I'm not sure how he's going to fit in this new offense. I have understood that Bruce Arians, I believe, is a big fan of Baker Mayfield, and I know that Bruce is still involved behind the scenes, and I think he had something to say about this addition. If it's Kyle Trask, I have no faith that he'll do anything. And I think we're going to get to a point during this year where Baker isn't winning enough games. The Bucs kind of realize where they're at, and they throw Kyle Trask in there to give him a chance, but they know that he's not any good. That's kind of how I feel about this situation. Coaching rank, I have Todd Bowles at 27. Look, the guy won his division last year. He is a good defensive coordinator, but he has proven that he's not a very quality head coach. Doesn't really have the personality for it. He's very laid back. And I just don't think he coaches a vision of all three phases very well. He's one of those guys that he's good when you give him that side of the ball that he knows well. But if you give him too much, it just doesn't work. And I don't think the team responded to him particularly well last year. Offensive line ranked 27th. Pretty weak offensive line. I think I'd rank that a little lower after Ryan Jensen went down. Unfortunately, I love Ryan Jensen, but it looks like his career is over. Sorry to hear that. Offense rank at number 28. Two good receivers, Tristan Wirfs, and that's pretty much it on this offense. Roster rank 21. They do have talented players, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Secondary 19th. I think they could play better than that, although I think they have more holes now than they did previously. Defensive line rank, pretty good defensive line at 15th. The question will be, if they want to rank higher than this, can Shaq Barrett get back to form? If they're not going to get Shaq Barrett back to form, I think their pass rush is still a little overrated. And their defense rank is 16th. A solid defense. At times can be a top 10 unit. I think they'll have a stretch during the year where they look very good. But as we've seen with the Bucs over the last 3 or 4 years, they have stretches where they're a dominant defense. They have stretches where they're pretty bad. And they have stretches where they're kind of average. So they're kind of all over the map. I think this defense is maybe even better than last year's on paper, at least the starting unit. But I just don't know. Some of these guys might be a little bit past their peak. So let's take a look at the depth charts for the Bucs. Offensively, I replaced Ryan Jensen with Hainsey, who played center last year for the Bucs. He wasn't terrible whatsoever. Like last season, he was fine. He actually wasn't the biggest issue with this offensive line. Matt Filer, a veteran guard, comes in to help out at left guard. I think he'll stabilize that position a little bit better than what they had last year. That was actually Godeke who played a lot last year. I think that's how you pronounce his name. Could be wrong, though. He's going to be sliding to right tackle, and Wirf's going to be moving to left tackle. I don't know why they made this decision. I understand that they want to get something out of their second-round pick, I believe it was, to put him at right tackle. But, man, like Tristan Wirfs was the best right tackle in the NFL. Moving him to the opposite side is a little bit questionable. Cody Mock, I felt, was a really good draft pick. I think he'll be good right away, especially in the run game. Physicality, I think he's going to bring it. Cade Otton was a replaceable level tight end as a rookie. I think he looked a lot better than he was because of Tom Brady. The running back position, Rachaad White, Chase Edmonds, Keyshawn Vaughn, one of the worst running back rooms in football. I'm not a huge Rachaad White guy after watching him last year. I think he's fine. He can do everything kind of well. He's a good pass blocker, pretty good hands, decent receiver, an okay runner, not the best. Chase Edmonds is kind of similar at this point in his career, but he's just smaller. Baker at quarterback. Wide receivers, Evans, Godwin, and Palmer. Gage is on IR, unfortunately. But they lost a lot of receivers this offseason, including Scotty Miller, who left to a division rival. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, the combo. They're going to see a lot of targets. And Evans is trying to track 1,000 yards once again. I think their number one receiver this year will be Chris Godwin. Coming off the ACL, another year removed. I think he'll have a nice year for himself. On defense, Vita Vea on the inside. Beast when he's in the lineup, when he's healthy, and when he's playing at his best. He is a unique playmaker at that position, at nose tackle. There's not many specimens like him on earth. Gaines, I felt, was one of their quality additions this offseason from the Rams. Really solid interior defensive lineman. They also have pretty good depth at that position. They have a first-round pick out of Pittsburgh, Kalijah Cansey. They have Logan Hall, who was a high second-round pick a couple years back. Shaq Barrett and Joe Tryon are on the edge. And that edge position is also pretty deep, too, for this team. They need to get more out of Tryon Shoyinka, who was a first-round pick a couple years ago. He's just inconsistent. Shows flashes as a pass rusher, but not enough. And Shaq coming off a serious Achilles injury. I hope he's okay. I hope he's ready to go and ready to rock. Levante David, Devin White in the middle, of course. Devin White needs to play better or else he's going to be gone. He's not going to be a Buck after this season. Dean and Davis at corner, one of the best corner tandems in football, in my opinion. Winfield and Neal, I think, is a pretty good safety duo. Although they don't have great corner or safety depth, which definitely hurt their ranking for me. Winfield and Neal are good. Winfield's special. I think he's one of the best safeties in football. But after that, they don't have much, right? So we'll see how it goes. I like the pickup out of Seattle at the safety position for the Bucks. And then Delaney, I've never been a fan. I think he stinks. Like, I think he's terrible. But I don't know. I guess the team likes him. Whatever. So that's Todd Bowles' prerogative. That's how I feel about the roster. I think they still have some talent. But definitely looking at the offense, it's very bare. It's very bare. Tight end, running back, offensive line, very weak. It's really just Evans and Godwin right now. And Tristan Wirfs trying to hang on at left tackle. The defense, I think, could be decent, but I don't know, man. I don't know. So, Tampa Bay, I think they're the worst team in this division. But most of that, honestly, has to do with the quarterback and the coach situation. If this team had a better quarterback, I think they'd be closer to 6, 7, 8 wins, maybe 9. I still think they have enough talent on defense and receiving core-wise, where if they had a good quarterback, I think they would still make a run for the division, but they don't. And the coaching, I think, is also a big problem in Tampa. They have probably the worst coaching staff in the division. Ceiling is 8-9, last year's production for this team. But the fact of the matter is, man, this team could be pretty bad. I think they're going to be picking very high. I would take the under 6.5 wins for sure as a lock. And I would also say it's difficult adjusting and moving on and moving forward after Tom Brady. It's the greatest quarterback that ever lived. Did he play like that last year? No, not necessarily. But did he also pull out a lot of wins for you at the end? Yeah, he did. Now, I thought the Bucs stunk last year. Like, they were a lot worse than a playoff team. They made it somehow. It was magic, honestly. It was a miracle. If they play like that this year, they'll be a 2 or 3 win team. They're just not going to be able to overcome it. So, I think this is Todd Bowles' year to kind of figure out if he's going to keep this job or not. It's going to be a year to figure out what pick do we have to pick a franchise quarterback, and that's kind of what I think about the Bucs, man. I think this is a transition year to find the next guy. The next team is the New Orleans Saints. The New Orleans Saints, for a lot of people, is the favorite in this division. Their expectation after signing Derek Carr is to win the division. And it should be. They have probably from top to bottom the best roster in the division. Derek Carr is the most proven, capable veteran quarterback in the division. And they have a lot of veteran leaders and a lot of veteran names. Cameron Jordan, Demario Davis, Tyrann Mathieu, Michael Thomas, Alvin Kamara, Ryan Ramczyk. They have a lot of guys that you look at and you say, that's all name team stuff right there. Those guys have been in the league. They've been successful. They've been all pros. They've been Pro Bowlers. They've been there. But this team doesn't have Sean Payton. We saw that last year. Coaching is a little suspect. Dennis Allen's not the best. He's never proven to be the best, or even close to it. And Derek Carr has never won a playoff game. Is he going to start now? He also has this streak of having really bad defenses. Will the Saints break that? We'll see. Let's see where they rank going into this year. At number 23, quarterback, Derek Carr. That's a lot lower than I think a lot of people will have him, and I understand it. I was really high on Derek Carr going into last year, and I think that's why I rank him so low this year. He was so disappointing last year. He played like poop. He was bad last year. Like inaccurate, indecisive, scared in the pocket. Not making enough big throws. Not coming up clutch in the big moments. In my opinion, he's the reason the Raiders didn't win 8 or 9 games last year. They had so many leads, and he blew it in a lot of games. So, that's why he's number 23, guys. Number 29 at coach. You could argue that Dennis Allen, other than the new coaches, worst coach in the NFL. You could argue that. Although I will say, I like him as a defensive coordinator, similar to Todd Bowles. But once you give him that head coaching responsibility, not the same guy. Offensive line rank at number 20. It's not what it used to be, but it's not terrible. It's not like putrid, but it's not great. Offense rank number 21. I think this could be better depending on the offensive line, depending on Michael Thomas's health, Alvin Kamara, how he looks, Chris Olave, how many steps he takes forward, Juwan Johnson, same thing. The offense could definitely be a top half offense if they get it all together, but there's a lot of questions as well. The roster is a top 20 roster. As I suggested, probably the most talented in the division. The secondary is probably the strength of the team. 11th best secondary. I saw they just released Bradley Roby, who I think I'm going to have on one of these depth charts here. Defensive line rank, number 28. Actually, the weakest defensive line the Saints have had in years, just from a known quantity standpoint. Defense rank, number 14. I think they're a good defense, above average. I don't think they're great, and I think this is a season where they could take a step back, for sure. So let's take a look at the depth chart on offense. I think Olave is the future superstar of this offense. I think he should be going high in fantasy drafts. I think he's going to have a huge year. And I've admitted it more than once. He was a misevaluation by me coming out of the draft. I liked a lot of those receivers, man. I loved Christian Watson. I liked Drake London. I liked even Alec Pierce. I liked Garrett Wilson for sure. Chris Olave, for whatever reason, he wasn't on that same level for me. And Chris Olave has proven me wrong already. So, guy's a beast. He's such a smooth player, smooth route runner, makes things happen down the field. I think Derek Carr is going to spam him with targets. Michael Thomas, I hope he can play a full season. I don't even care if he's good anymore. I don't think he really is. I think he'll be okay, like a serviceable number 2 or 3 receiver. But I just want to see him play. Like, I don't want to see the guy hurt. I don't want to see the guy get in trouble. I just want to see him play, please. Shaheed is a one-trick pony downfield receiver, but that's fine. The offensive line, Penning is a big question mark at left tackle. He's going to get some play this year. We'll see how he looks. Still a young player. Pete and Ruiz haven't lived up to their potential in recent seasons. McCoy didn't have his best year last year, but it was overall a pretty good center. Ryan Ramczyk is still Ryan Ramczyk, although not the best right tackle in football. He's in the conversation. Jawan Johnson, one of my favorite players on the offense. He is a baller. I love his athleticism at that position. I think he's another breakout candidate. Taysom Hill still on the team. He's going to make some plays. Jamal Williams, backup for Kamara, who's suspended for the first couple of weeks. He's going to get a lot of carries early in the year. I think that was kind of at the time, a weird pickup, but I think he's really going to help the culture and the locker room of the Saints. He did that for the Detroit Lions pretty well. The defense. Really like the linebacker duo of Werner and Davis. Werner had a really good year last year when he was on the field. Demario Davis has been one of the top 5 linebackers in football for years. You got Matthew and May at safety, both getting a little older. I'd say that Matthew, a little bit more limited than he used to be, but still a good safety. Lattimore, one of the best corners in football. Roby, who's replacing him? That is a question, I guess. Taylor had some moments. He's a young corner. We'll see if he can develop. Granderson, he needs to step up big time. No more Marcus Davenport, no David Onyemata. Granderson's the guy they're counting on. Brian Brzee and Peyton Turner and these guys that they spent high capital on have to perform a little bit more. Shepard and Saunders both were picked up in free agency. Shepard from the Jets, decent run defender. Saunders from the Chiefs. Not a huge fan of either one, to be honest. Cameron Jordan, still playing at a high level, but he's older than dirt. So we'll see if he can still go in 2023. So my questions about the Saints are, can the old defense still come to play in 2023? How much better will Derek Carr make the offense? How much better is he than Andy Dalton? And can they stay healthy, productive, and consistent on offense? I think this team is a little overrated. I think their roster, their talent is a little overrated because we look at the names, we see the past. We don't see the future. That being said, they play a weak schedule. They play in a weak division. They do have the best quarterback in the division to start the year. They do on paper have the best defense, you would think, in the division. And although I have questions about Dennis Allen, I think they'll compete to win the division. But I don't have them winning it. I have them going 8-9. I initially had them at 9-8. I docked them one game. Ceiling is 11-6. Michael Thomas is healthy. Chris Olave breaks out. The O-line plays well enough. Derek Carr plays closer to last year than he did this year in terms of he plays closer to 2021 than he does 2022. Then this team could be good if they get a decent defense and Derek Carr from a couple of years ago. I could see it. Floor, their defense regresses. They get old really fast. Carr doesn't work out. Team doesn't believe in him. Dennis Allen is terrible as a coach. A lot of things could go wrong for this team. Alvin Kamara's suspension. He comes back. He's not very good. Michael Thomas, not the same guy. All that stuff. I would definitely bet the under 9.5. I think it's going to be really hard for this team to win double digits this year. So the Saints are a tricky one because I could see a world where they win the division, where they go to the playoffs. But it feels like this team's been desperate to do so the last few years, and that usually doesn't work out for those type of teams. Now let's move to the team that I think is going to win this division. The Atlanta Falcons. I have decided that the Atlanta Falcons are going to win the division. And all offseason I've been saying, and you guys know, Falcons fans know well, I've been saying, I want to pick Atlanta to win the division, but I can't because I don't trust Desmond Ridder. And I'm going to sit here and I'm going to say, I still don't trust Desmond Ridder, but I'm going to pick the Atlanta Falcons anyways. Because honestly, I don't really think it matters that much. The one thing I love about the Atlanta Falcons is, out of all these teams in this division, I don't know what the Bucs are going to be. I've questioned the Carolina Panthers' identity. The New Orleans Saints are a bunch of players thrown together on a field. The Atlanta Falcons feel like a team. They feel like a team with a goal, with an identity, with a purpose, with an understanding of what they want to be every Sunday. And it's unique to the rest of the NFL. It's unique to the division. And I think it showcases some of their biggest areas of strength. They have an offensive line, a running game, a power identity that is so much greater and better than any other strength on any other one of these teams. That is what sold me. That is what sells me on the Atlanta Falcons winning the division. The fact that Arthur Smith, Bijan Robinson, this offensive line led by Chris Lindstrom is going to power people into the dirt. And their defense is better. And they've got size and beef on the defense. This team feels like a Tennessee Titans NFC version. I think that's good enough to win this division. The expectations for Atlanta, I would say, are finish in the top 2 in the division. Find out if you have a quarterback in Desmond Ridder. I wouldn't say they have pressure to win the division this year, but they certainly would like it, Atlanta fans. I don't think they expect it, but I think they think it's possible. I would also say that they are a little bit of the sexy pick because they're fun. They are fun. At least I think so. A team that has Kyle Pitts, Drake London, and Bijan Robinson is kind of fun to root for. So let's take a look at the strengths and the weaknesses of the Atlanta Falcons, a team that I think will win the division. Now, that being said, that doesn't mean I think I'm sold that they're phenomenal, right? I ranked Desmond Ridder as the worst starting quarterback in football. I wasn't a fan of him coming out of college overall. I thought he wasn't anything special. I wonder if he's as good of an athlete as his fan base believes he is. But what I like about Desmond Ridder is I think he's smart. I think he'll protect the ball. I think he has a pretty good arm. I think he's pretty athletic. He's a big guy. And I think he is a good leader. And I feel like Desmond Ridder is a good soldier in this type of system. I don't think he's going to ruin it. I think he's just going to be fine. And I think that's good. I don't think this team needs a quarterback that's going to go above and beyond. They just need a guy to run the system and do his thing, okay? Coaching rank, Arthur Smith, one of my low-key favorites in football. I think he's done so much with so little over the last couple of years. Winning 7 games last year was a borderline miracle. The offensive line I have is the second best in football. It's the strongest unit in the division. Offense rank, I have at 19, although I could argue they could be a top half unit this year. Roster rank at number 29. A lot to do with certain aspects of the roster that I'm not a huge fan of, especially on defense. Secondary is 26. Defensive line 24. Defense rank 26. So, there it is. I feel like the defense is better than one of the worst units in football, but they still need to prove to me that they can get a pass rush going and that they can cover outside of A.J. Terrell. So, let's take a look at the offensive depth chart. You got London, Hollins, and Hodge at wide receiver. I think they still have Scotty Miller as well as their number 4. I think Drake London's going to have a big year. Now, everyone's talking about their running game, as they should. Bijan Robinson, as they should. Pick Bijan Robinson in the first round. Of your fantasy drafts, pick him in the top 5. That's just my opinion. Drake London, though, I think he's going to have a great year. I think he's going to catch 80 to 90 balls. I think he's going to have 1,100 yards this year. Let's put that down. 8 touchdowns. I think Drake London is going to lead this team in receiving. He's going to be a target hog. I think they're going to spam him with the ball. That being said, I don't expect that much from Kyle Pitts, but I expect more efficiency than last year. I expect more involvement than last year. I don't expect something special because I don't know if they even want that out of him. But, man, it's disappointing what he did last year. He needs to do better, and they need to do better finding ways to get him the ball. Maybe Ridder will be that guy. Matt Collins actually played pretty well for the Raiders last year. He's a really good run blocker. He's a big body. He can go down the field and catch the ball in contested situations. Like that pickup in free agency. The offensive line is awesome. Bergeron, the rookie at left guard, the Canadian. Nice to see him in the lineup. Matthews and McGarry at tackle. McGarry got a nice contract. Algier, Patterson, the backup running backs. Heineken, the backup quarterback. We know he can come in and win games if need be. Defensively, Jesse Bates, huge signing this offseason. Absolute stud at the safety position. Richie Grant, I think a little bit underrated. I am a Richie Grant fan. I have been the last couple of years. He's always stood out. And here's the thing about the Falcons from last couple of years standpoint and perspective. I always felt like watching Atlanta, they knew what they were doing. They knew how to play a team. Like whenever you would watch them play the Bucs, right? The Bucs were always better. They were more talented. They had Tom Brady. But there were always moments in those games where you're like, how is Atlanta playing in this game? And they always felt like they knew what the Bucs wanted to do. They just couldn't execute to stop it. And they couldn't execute to fulfill a win. But they had them on the ropes multiple times. And I felt like that was due to coaching and just these players playing their roles. Right? And that's what I like about this team, man. Anderson and Ellis at linebacker. Ellis knows this system. It's a new one from New Orleans. And what I love about this defense right now is, well, I love Terrell and Bates at corner and safety. Like, you gotta love that. But I love the beef they have on the defensive line. They have Onyemata, Grady Jarrett, right? In the middle of this defense. They got Calais Campbell, 6'8" monster on this defense. I think Eddie Goldman is on this team. They have beef, boy. They're not going to get ran on whatsoever. Bud Dupree, is it Lorenzo Carter? These guys, man, they're big boys. They're big boys. This is like a Tennessee Titans Patriots type of front right here. These guys are big. The Baltimore Ravens, okay? I think people are going to be shocked watching the Falcons because I think they're going to play with physicality. I think they're going to play with grit, toughness, power in a way that we haven't seen from Atlanta, and I don't even know how long. Atlanta's always been a finesse speed team. Always. Michael Vick era, Matt Ryan era, doesn't matter, man. They've always been a finesse team. They've always been a speed team. This team is big. This team is nasty. Okay, Okuda, I think, is terrible, but we'll see how he plays. Robert Alford, veteran of the game, as well at corner. So, I really like Atlanta, man. I just love their identity. I love the power. And I'm excited to watch Bijan play. I think he's going to be special. I think Bijan is going to be one of, if not the best running back in the NFL this year. And I wouldn't be surprised if he was in the MVP conversation for periods of the year. I wouldn't be surprised. It's not going to go to him. He's going to win Rookie of the Year. But I think that the way they play is going to be recognized. So let's take a look at the record. So I have them going 8-9. And you're probably saying, hey, Mitch, didn't you have the Saints going 8-9? Yeah, I did. But again, the Bucs won the division at 8-9, having a losing record. I have Atlanta winning the tiebreak, going 8-9. I almost put them at 9-8, but then that would have messed up all my mathematics for the rest of every division and schedule, so I just didn't want to go through with it. But anyways, you could see it as 9-8, you could see it as 8-9, but regardless, they're going to win the division, and they're going to be the number 4 seed in the NFC. Ceiling, 11-6. That's if Desmond Ridder can actually play football, and the defense, some of the new additions really come through, and they find a pass rush. The floor, Desmond Ridder's terrible. The offensive line isn't quite as good as we think, and Kyle Pitts still lost in the shuffle. Defensively, they still stink, 5-12. And the over-under, I would go with, I put under, but I would probably go over, to be honest. I have it under because I put them at 8-9, and I could see them going 7-10, but I also could see them going 9-8. So I would honestly just not bet it. How about we just don't bet it, okay? So anywhere between 7 and 10 wins feels about right for me with the Atlanta Falcons. And I think they're going to win the division or finish second. And ultimately, my standings are the Atlanta Falcons winning the division at 8-9. The Saints finishing second in the division just outside the playoffs at 8-9. The Carolina Panthers going 7-10 as a respectable third place. Same record as last year, just kind of in a different fashion and form. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, 4-13. They absolutely stink this year because they don't have a quarterback. They don't have a great head coach. And their roster is just not in the best shape right now, especially on offense. So that is my NFC South breakdown, thoughts, analysis on each team, their strengths, their weaknesses, their players, their depth charts. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope you guys are enjoying this series. If you are, grind spike the like button. Subscribe for more NFL division previews and team breakdowns. Also, let me know in the comments your NFC South predictions. We will see you soon, guys. Peace.